We are live. Wouldn't you look at that? We are finally back over here on YouTube. Man, it's been forever. It feels like I think it's been like 6 or 7 months. Whether you're watching this as this is going on or watching this after, thank you for tuning back into the Holmes Field Advantage. As always, I'm your host, Brett Holmes. I know I've been away for a little bit, and I swear I'm sorry, but we are coming in right on here at a buzzer. We have so much to talk about. There are 32 picks that I want to sit here and mock. There's a lot of really exciting stuff that's been going on, and about 24 hours outside of the draft, we are going to be locking in and trying to get as many picks in as we can. So, as people start rolling in live or as you start watching in, make sure you go down there, make sure you are subscribed, hit that notification bell so you know whenever I decide to upload again that you are right up here alongside everybody else, and drop a like while you're down there. Why not? You're already down there. Make use of your time. I'm not going to waste your time. You know what I'm here to talk about. You know what I want to talk about, and that is the mock draft. So we are going to get everything set up over here on the mock draft simulator, and let's get things going. Don't mind the ads. PFF has not been working, and if I want to do trades, PFF makes you pay like so much money. So I'm not even dealing with that. But PFSN, whatever, it doesn't matter. We are not going to be going based off their big board. I've done enough research on this class to where I know the guys that I like and the fits that I like. And we are going to start off with a really, really interesting pick here. 101 in the 2025 NFL draft is one of the most talked about picks in recent memory, and not for all of the good reasons. It is not a pick where people are talking about who they should draft or who they know they're going to draft and how talented he is. It's a pick where a lot of people are judging the Titans. Why are you forcing yourself to make this pick? For a while, I thought Abdul Carter was the guy. I thought he looked like the best prospect in this class outside of Travis Hunter. And you can start talking about guys like Jeanty, Mason Graham, Will Campbell as some of the better prospects in this class. But the best quarterback here is Cam Ward. And what Cam Ward's got is more potential than what Shedeur Sanders has. If you need a quarterback and you have a win-now team and you just need somebody to come in and fill in a spot, Shedeur Sanders is your guy. The Titans are not that team. They have Calvin Ridley, a good running back core, and Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard, and that is it. What's up, Gavin? Thank you for coming back in. Look, Cam Ward's got really good potential when it comes to what he can do with his traits. He's got a lot of different arm angles. He's got good power behind his arm. The one thing that concerns me is him throwing in the middle of the field. And that's one of the only things I like about Shedeur Sanders is the fact that he is an accurate quarterback. He doesn't have blistering speed. He doesn't have blistering arm talent, but he is accurate and he's really, really good in between the hashes. I don't love what I've seen on tape from Cam Ward in the middle of the field because that's where most of his errant throws are, is sitting there in the pocket, forcing a throw or not really getting that great of a look on the run, rolling out of the pocket and making some bad decisions. His interceptions are not good interceptions. They are ugly. They're not jump balls. They're not, drop passes from the receiver. They, for the most part, are all on Cam. And that's what's really worrisome for me. But if he puts it together, I think the Titans can get a really, really entertaining quarterback here at 1. At 2, I have no idea what Shedeur is going to be. I don't know where he's going to go, but it ain't going to be here. I also don't think this is going to be Abdul Carter. As much as it would make sense for them to continue to add on the defensive line, I think the amount of interest they've shown in Travis Hunter as a receiver is enough for me to say that I think the first 3 picks are going to be Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and then Abdul Carter. Now, I don't love this pick for New York from a fit standpoint. But if we're talking about top-end talent, we're talking about long-term, who is the guy that's going to make the most plays? It's Abdul Carter. It's not Shedeur. You already have a good enough quarterback room to where you can just build around them and then plug in a quarterback when a more talented class comes around, like next year's. We don't know what Nico Iamaleava is going to be like over in UCLA. We don't know what Arch Manning is going to be like in his first full year as a starter. We don't know what Drew Aller, Cade Klubnik. All I know is that those names are more intriguing right now than Shedeur Sanders is, at least at the third overall pick, to where you can pick somebody else that you don't have to pretty much bank on Shedeur. Now, going back with Cleveland, the reason I didn't really explain that pick all that much is that it's a no-brainer. Travis Hunter is a generational talent. I think he comes in, takes over at wide receiver. That's the place to do it. Cleveland is the place for Travis Hunter to be a wide receiver, and I think he can do that at a very high level. Abdul Carter, I think he's a guy that comes in and says, Kayvon Thibodeau, it's been nice knowing you. Kick rocks. You haven't been doing your job as a top 5 pick. Kayvon, I think, is a good edge in the NFL. I don't think he's a star. I don't think he's the level of star that Abdul Carter can be. And I think Abdul Carter learning alongside Dexter Lawrence from a technical aspect and learning alongside Brian Burns as a way to utilize his speed in a way that doesn't get in the way of his technicality is something that Abdul is going to benefit from massively, and something that the New York Giants are going to benefit more from than keeping Kayvon Thibodeau. I think if this is the way it goes, and I think this is a soft and swift goodbye for Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, for the New England Patriots, I don't know if they would come out of this pick or not. I think this would be a really good spot for a team to jump up. I think if you're the Raiders, with all the talk that's been happening with the Jags, you could be looking to jump up there at 4. You won't have to pay too much. You're swapping 6 for 4. You're going to have to get a good amount of compensation. It's a possibility, and I think it's going to be something that is talked about. However, it seems like Vrabel is kind of settled in at 4 for New England. And I think if that's the case, you got to go Will Campbell. Will Campbell's the best tackle in this class. He's the best guard in this class. Technically, he is a monster. He's all over the place. His technique is some of the best in college football over the last few years. He has great power. He has ideal height. The arm size is something you can sit there and critique all you want. The guy has been able to adjust, and he's been able to dominate in the SEC as a tackle. And I think what you want from this pick is security. And you could get security by going with a guy like Ashton Jeanty. You could get security by going with a wide receiver. You could get security by trading down. I think the best way to secure your team is to secure your quarterback. Will Campbell is that guy. Now, you may be looking at the title and you're saying, okay, well, where the hell is Jeanty going to be? Jeanty jumps to top 5? He's nowhere in here. If you're a Jags fan, I look away. I think you're going with Ashton Jeanty. Right now, he is the odds-on favorite, and I can't believe it. I can't believe it because they've got enough on that roster to where they don't even need to worry about running back. And Liam Cohen is already coming out here and saying, well, Ashton Jeanty might be the fix. Your offense isn't the problem long-term. It's your defense. It's your defense that's keeping your offense on the field and wearing them out quicker than most of the other teams in the NFL. Your secondary is bad. Your front 7 is very, very questionable. You have a talented edge lineup, but nobody on the interior of that defensive line. I think Mason Graham is the golden ticket for this team to become a playoff team, and they're passing it up for Ashton Jeanty. Now, I love Ashton Jeanty, especially as a Dallas fan. I love Ashton Jeanty. I don't like this fit because you're forcing yourself to make a move that you do not have to. Yes, can you get value for ETN? Can you get an extra day 2 pick out of him? Probably. But you also have to worry about, okay, well, who is really going to be out here trading for ETN when they know he's going to be asking for money because of what he's done in the past, even though he didn't have that great of a season? So you're likely getting a rental. Or are you really going to give up a 2nd or 3rd round pick that you're going to have for the next 4 years for a 1-year rental running back that will likely be better off set alongside another running back? This isn't even a 3-down guy because he got his workload ate into by Tank Bigsby last year. Or do you trade away Tank Bigsby, who had a great year last year, but we don't know the ceiling on him? I have no idea what the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to do. All I know is that as of right now, they're infatuated with Ashton Jeanty, and it seems like that's what the pick is going to end up being. For the Raiders, you're kicking, you're screaming, you're crying. You got no idea what to do because you're sitting here at 6 and you are looking at probably what would have been the most exciting prospect since Bo Jackson offensively to come through Las Vegas through the draft at least. And the Jags took him in front of you because they just, were messing around and wanted to. I think if I'm the Raiders, I think you still go offense. I don't know if I love Armand Membu here just because I don't know if the offensive line is their biggest concern. But at the same time, this is also a position for them to reevaluate, look at the field. It's like, okay, well, a lot of people in this range are looking for a guy like Tyler Warren or Jalen Walker. I don't know if we need those kinds of talent. You could go with Jalen Walker, and I do like him. I think this is a really good spot for a team to jump in front of the Jets or in front of the Saints to get a guy like Tyler Warren. And the team that stands out to me the most that desperately needs Tyler Warren, that I just don't think it can pass up on a guy like him as a receiving talent, is the Indianapolis Colts. And I think the Colts can put together something that is interesting enough as an offer to the Las Vegas Raiders to make them consider, okay, maybe we don't have to pick at 6. Maybe we can jump back down at 14 and be fine. Now, this is a pretty big jump. I think they would probably just give up 14 and 45 and just get 6 straight up. Why is that? Why is that being rejected? Why is that being rejected? That makes no sense. Why would that be rejected in real life? You're giving up a first and a second to jump into the top 10. You're doing that. How can both teams reject this trade? Okay. Well, for the sake of this, we won't be accurate. We'll just offer it straight up to Indianapolis, but know that they would probably have to give up a second or some sort of future arrangement. But for the sake of this, the Colts are going to jump up to 6 and get Tyler Warren. Now, I'm not 100% sure if this is going to happen, but I know if the board falls out this way, Las Vegas is going to be looking to trade out. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for the Colts to get aggressive, to jump ahead of a team like the Jets, who is also in the AFC, and a team like the Saints that would for sure take Tyler Warren. Now, if you are the New York Jets, you're like, okay, well, that sucks. This is a guy that would have been great for us offensively, but he's a highly touted prospect. You don't know if he's going to go within these top 5 or not. You live and you learn, you move past it, and you get a guy that can protect your quarterback in Justin Fields and Armand Membu. Membu is a little bit more raw of a prospect. Athletically, he's great, and I love the athletic traits of Armand Membu. The one thing that I don't like about his trait is I don't know if the offense kind of helped him out a little bit more. If the fact that he had a little bit more help with how that offensive line was schemed with different pulls, if Armand Membu wasn't really put in that situation to be the blindside guy because of the way Missouri's offense was this past year. But physically, he's great. He can move on the inside. He can move to the outside. It doesn't matter where you put him. I think he's a really good prospect, and something that the Jets cannot miss out on right now is protecting Justin Fields and bolstering up this offensive line after last year. Hopefully, Justin Fields can handle a blitz better than Aaron Rodgers. Armand Membu is a really good way to kind of ensure that you don't get blitzed as much, or at least the blitzes don't work as well, protecting Fields' blind side. This is probably the easiest pick in the world to make for me because Jalen Walker is the perfect prospect for the Carolina Panthers to pick. Walker is a guy that projects to move on and off the line of scrimmage, and I think that is something that Carolina would love to have. This is a fast, all-over-the-place defensive prospect that is not going to be the main guy on defense. Right now, the 2 main guys on defense are Derek Brown on the interior and J.C. Horn on the exterior. With your secondary locked down with J.C., you've got, I don't know about the other half of the field, but you've got your CB1, you've got one of the better defensive tackles in the NFL. That is a lot of attention that is not going to be going Jalen Walker's way. Trust me, he's going to attract attention because of how good of a prospect he is, but he's not expected to come in here and play hero ball, and I think that's great. I think for an offense that is getting better, I think this defense is going to be on the field for a less amount of time. especially at the beginning of this year. But with how last year ended, I think Carolina is going to be in a better position to pick defense and be a little bit more safe with getting a guy that needs a little bit more development, maybe a little bit more catching up to do to the NFL speed. I think Jalen Walker is a great fit for Carolina. New Orleans. I have them going a bunch of different directions over the past couple of weeks. I don't know if they're going to go edge. I don't know if they're going to go line. I mean, they just dropped. I think they didn't pick up Trevor Penning's fifth-year option, but they picked up Chris Olave's, obviously, because it's Chris Olave. He's a good receiver. So you're looking at your offensive line. You're like, man, I don't know if I love this. But, I mean, you're at 9. Could you trade back? Is there anybody that wants to jump ahead? I don't know if New Orleans is really going to get that great of a field value here. I think Mason Graham is in the picture just because he is on the defensive line, and I think they need a better defensive line. I also think this team needs a CB1. And as of right now, over Will Johnson, I've got Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron is uber athletic. He can move all over the field. Free safety, slot corner, boundary corner. He may not be the ideal size, but the technical aspect, the footwork, his eyes are some of the best, arguably the best in this class. Jahdae Barron played out of his mind at Texas last year, one of the highest rated corners based on PFF's ranking system, and I agree with them. Barron is a phenomenal prospect. You lose Marshawn Lattimore. You lose Paulson Adebo. You've got Kool-Aid McKinstry, who is still developing as a corner. This is a really good way to bolster up your defense. I think another really good fit for them here could be replacing Demario Davis long-term and getting a guy like Jahad Campbell. I don't think they would go safety this high, but Malachi Starks would absolutely eat for them. But Jahdae Barron is the safest pick. I think it's a great fit there for the Saints. Now for the Bears. The Bears are in a really odd predicament because they were really, really holding out for the past couple of months that Ashton Jeanty was going to fall. I don't think that's going to happen tomorrow. If that does, God bless this league, because if they get Ashton Jeanty in that offense, Ben Johnson is going to go insane. But they are still getting lucky here at 10 because there's a guy on the board that should not be here at all. He should not be here, and it's Mason Graham. The fact that Mason Graham is still on the board is beyond me, but he is. There's a couple other players that are still on the board that likely shouldn't be based on value or based on positional value. But either way, the Bears are sitting here looking at the plethora of picks they have in the second round, especially at the top of the second round. You're looking at the value you get with Mason Graham, and it's kind of irreplaceable. He's a people wrecker. He has something on that defensive line to take away from Montez Sweat to open more opportunities for him. Mason Graham is great in the run game. He's great at pass rushing. He lives in the backfield. You get Mason Graham if he's available at 10 because this is one of the only blue chip players in this entire class. Now for the San Francisco 49ers, I don't know if you can really afford to not go defense here with how bad your defense was last year. You lost Dre Greenlaw. I think that sucks. I also think that brings in a really good case for Jahad Campbell to go here and learn alongside Fred Warner. That would easily make one of the best linebacker duos in the league. At least athletically, it would be one of the best. You never know what Jahad Campbell's going to be. He hasn't played a snap yet, but he looks phenomenal. He looks like $1 million out there based on his tape from Alabama, based on his testing from the combine. I don't know if that's what I have them penciled in at. I think Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss is a really good fit here. I also think you could look at Will Johnson and start convincing yourself that he's the pick, or Shamar Stewart based on his athletic traits. I think Shamar Stewart's going to fall down board a little bit more. I don't think he's the pick here at 11. If I'm going to go with somebody that I think fits what they need, and it's kind of like Mason Graham, and he has a little bit of both. He's not as talented. He's not as much of a people wrecker as Mason Graham, but Walter Nolan is versatile enough as a defensive tackle to come in and make up for the inconsistencies that you saw from Nick Bosa and the rest of that defense. Now, I'm not going to blame that all on Bosa. He's a defensive player of the year caliber guy, and there was nobody else on that defense to really attract to. So Bosa was kind of locked in over there on the Niners defense. I think Walter Nolan is a really good way for them to secure their defensive line a little bit more. Dallas. I mean, it'd be funny if they went Shedeur. Look, I'm going to try to throw bias as much out as much as I possibly can right now. If I am Dallas sitting at 12, I am jumping on Teteroy McMillan as fast as I can. Or I'm going with Amari Hampton because I think Amari Hampton is a top 15 prospect in this class, and I think he's worth it here at 12. I also don't hate trading out. I don't hate trading out at 12. And I joked about Shedeur Sanders. I think Shedeur Sanders is going to go at 12. It ain't going to be the Cowboys, though. Best believe the Cowboys are going to get a little bit more compensation out of this pick. But because this trade machine is weird, I'm just going to do a 1-for-1. 21-12 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They trade up, they get aggressive, and they make their pick for Shedeur Sanders. This is a walk in the park. This is a dream come true. And I know they were really worried about the Saints going with Shedeur. I think that's still in the play. Honestly, from what I've been seeing from the Saints, I think they also like Jackson Dart a lot, and I think they'd rather go with Jackson Dart later in the draft and get one of the best players hands down in this class in Jahdae Barron. The Steelers cannot sit at 21 and risk a team trading up and getting risky. I mean, you've got the Seattle Seahawks they locked down Sam Darnold, but he's not the quarterback of the future. You've got the Raiders sitting at 14. He could learn. You've also got a team like the Cardinals that would be a sleeper pick and would be a shocker, definitely. But Kyler Murray has not really made that step up. I'm not saying that's going to happen at all, but there's a lot of different questions that Shedeur could answer for some teams, and I think there's a lot of questions that he does answer for Seattle. It makes too much sense, and I think this would be the only candidate to trade up to 12. I love it. I love it for both teams. I think it's a more entertaining fit. It's a safer fit for Shedeur. Probably the best fit in this draft for Shedeur is to go to Pittsburgh. If he falls this far. He could go to New Orleans for all I know, but I think if he falls this far, this is him. Now, Miami's looking like they're going to end up blowing up the entire ship. With the news that they are probably going to be moving on from Jalen Ramsey this offseason, it makes me be a little bit more aggressive towards going corner here. I don't know if I can pick Will Johnson over Jahad Campbell, though. Will Johnson has some injury issues. His speed isn't really all that great. As a boundary corner, you want a little bit more. The size is good. The instincts are great. I think they heavily consider it here. But Jahad Campbell, like I said, looks like $1 million physically. All over the place on tape for Alabama. And the Dolphins don't really have a commander on defense. And Jahad Campbell would come in and be Corporal Campbell, would be General Jahad. He would come in there and take over on defense. And I love it. It's one of my favorite fits in the draft. I've been mocking it for a while. I've been thinking about it for a while. And I think if Miami is in this position and they don't go Jahad Campbell, they're going to be making a mistake because I think he fits all their needs defensively. Now the Raiders, they traded down from 6. They are sitting here at 14. They're sitting pretty, though, because there's a couple of players that they were considering at 6, I'm sure, that have fallen down, and they would probably go wide receiver here. It's either Teteroy McMillan or Matthew Golden. I think the better fit for them is Teteroy McMillan. Teteroy McMillan has the best overall chance to be a bona fide wide receiver 1. I know there was a lot of words in that sentence that I didn't need to use. But Teteroy McMillan is a physical freak. He is tall. If he pans out, he's Mike Evans 2.0. The reps are here and there. You don't know what he can do in the open field just yet. And you don't know how limited his route tree is outside of the deep ball or some of the medium routes. How good is he in the short game? How well can he move around the field, not only with the ball in his hands, but, can you move him around pre-snap? What are you limited to with T-Mac? And I think that's the main question that is turning a lot of these teams away. Because when you see wide receivers that go high in the draft, you look at Garrett Wilson, you look at Jamar Chase. All of the top wide receiver prospects outside of Drake London have been guys that you can move around the field, move in and out of the slot, and you can at least have a little bit fluidity with, not because you want to introduce all of these different concepts to him and get him moving in your offense, but because you have a little bit more to work with in finding out what his ideal fit is in the NFL. Teteroy McMillan, he is just a gunner. He is a go-get-it. He is a deep ball guy. He's a physical body. He's going to get touchdowns this year. I don't know how much he's going to get in receiving yardage, but I do know he's going to get touchdowns because a guy his frame, you got to look for him. He's going to be a great red zone threat for Las Vegas. And I think this is a really good fit for him because he's not really relied on to be the guy to put them downfield. Because you got Jacoby Myers, who's a really good technical receiver, and you've got Brock Bowers, who is arguably the best tight end in football, and he's only played 1 year in the NFL. This is a great fit. This is a great way to judge value, move down to 14, get a guy you probably would have ended up picking at 6 anyways. Great move here for the Las Vegas Raiders. The Atlanta Falcons, they are in they are in a lot of different things right now. They've got Kirk Cousins that is still showing up to the building. I don't even know if they want him to show up to the building. At the end of the day, they need to make a splash on defense, and I think the best way to do that is to pick Shamar Stewart. Shamar is one of the greatest athletes we have seen, at least at his position, but one of the best athletes we have seen test, period. He was that good. His relative athletic score was off the charts. I think he got a 10. That doesn't happen. That is just not something that happens in the combine. He is all over the place, and I think he can be all over the place for Atlanta. I'm not sure how well Texas A&M used him. His stats aren't really there. Atlanta needs something. They need upside, and Shamar Stewart has got all of it. You could argue with Mike Green. Production is there. Mykel Williams is one of the better run-stopping edges in this class. You could go with him and keep him in the state of Georgia. You could go with James Pierce Jr. There's a little bit of character concern there, and there was a little bit of conditioning concern just because he didn't play a lot of snaps at Tennessee. He was effective in the snaps that he played on the field, but he was coming on and off the field. Same thing with Shamar Stewart, though, but Shamar Stewart's testing was out of this world. Arizona. Now, I flirted with the idea of them shaking things up on offense and ditching Kyler Murray. I think it's going to happen. I was just floating that out there. I do think they could look to go offense here. With Matthew Golden still on the board, I think it is available. You don't really have that stud running back, and James Conner is probably not your long-term pick here. You can make a splash if you love Amari Hampton that much. If you love Travion Henderson or Kinshawn Judkins that much, you could get him here. I don't think it would be that bad of a pick. I think they do the smart thing and they stick to their roots, go with defense, because that's what you need. They need somebody on the interior. And Kenneth Grant is a very, very good defensive tackle prospect that is overshadowed by a blue chip out of this world defensive prospect in Mason Graham. But Kenneth Grant was still a very productive defensive tackle at Michigan. I think he's more of a run stopper than a pass rusher compared to Mason Graham. He's a little bit more fluid. But Kenneth Grant, a people eater in the middle. I think what you're going to want to get out of him, at least if you're Arizona, is something to open up more opportunities for the rest of your defense that you're trying to develop. I don't think this is the only pick on the defensive line they will make, but I think with the value that they have, I don't know why this big board had him ranked in the 30s. Kenneth Grant is a top 20 player, in my opinion, and I think this makes a lot of sense for Arizona. If the Bengals do not go edge, with all of the crap that's been going on with Trey Hendrickson, I will be stunned. And as of right now, the most productive edges on the board right now are Mike Green and James Pierce Jr. I have no idea what they should go with here because I don't know if you need a pass rushing, aficionado, because you could get that out of Pierce, Green, or Izzy Rocker. Izzy Rocker had a really good year last year. You could wait a little bit on edge, maybe. I don't think you can afford to do that. Or do you go with something that's a little bit more exciting? Something that can bring people into the stadium because, you don't got Trey Hendrickson, but you got this really exciting guy out of Georgia and Mykel Williams. And like I said earlier, Mykel Williams, probably the best run-stopping edge in this class. And I love this fit. I love this fit because they could not stop the run. When it was piling on for the Cincinnati Bengals last year on defense, it was rough. Mykel Williams is a guy that can slow down the pace of opposing offenses. And I think he's a better fit than Green and Pierce, who are really just pass rush guys. Mykel Williams, I think you can develop into a good pass rusher who's already got great tools for stopping the run. That's versatility, and that's what you need out of a top pick. And Mykel Williams, I think, has the makeup to do that. The offensive line was terrible. At least a certain side. I think it was the left side or whatever side that was. It was either the left or the right. It might have been the right side of the offensive line. But I remember Seattle having one of the worst guards. I think it was one of the worst right guards and one of the worst right tackles graded in the NFL. That's rough, especially when you've got somebody that is not that talented in Sam Darnold, at least from an improvising aspect. Sam Darnold needs an offensive line. He needs one. bad. And if he doesn't have an offensive line, it looks like trouble. So I think with the moves that you made, you can't not go offensive line. Kelvin Banks is the best one available. Josh Simmons' injury concerns are just that. They are very concerning. I think a guy like Tyler Booker is really talented. Gray Zabel is one of those, lower talent prospect or lower talent that he faced in college, but he's got a great build to be a late first to early second round offensive line prospect. I think Donovan Jackson should be higher. Donovan Jackson is a guard that moved out to tackle and played really good at tackle for Ohio State in place of Josh Simmons. I think Wyatt Milam is one of them. He didn't have that great of a pre-draft process, but on paper, Wyatt Milam out of West Virginia had that tackle guard fluidity that you like to see if you're making this big of an investment. I think if they don't go offensive tackle here, they could still go offensive tackle later, or if they do go with tackle, they could still go guard later because they have two positions that were really bad last year that they need to address. Now, for the Bucs, I think with the guy that's fallen, you kind of can't not take him, and that's Will Johnson. Will Johnson, I think this is about the range where he's going to go. The upside you can get is Pro Bowl, all-pro level corner. But what you're probably going to get out of him right now is a guy that is slowly getting back up to playing pace, at least to the pace that he was in the NCAA. And now you're getting a guy that has to move from recovering from injury and adjusting to the NFL and trying to keep up with some of the guys. Now, he is going to have some great practice because you brought back Chris Godwin and you've got a Hall of Famer in Mike Evans and you've got a really crafty slot receiver in Jalen McMillan. He's going to be facing up against a bunch of these guys. He's a boundary corner. He's a guy that you stick on one side of the field and you leave him there. I don't know what the adjustment period is going to be for Will Johnson in the NFL. All I know is that I don't think there is a world where he falls to the Bucs and they let him get past. Because their corner room, even though Jamel Dean isn't a bad corner, I don't think he's good enough for them to overlook what Will Johnson is as a prospect. I don't think the Broncos can sit here at 20 and not go with Omarion Hampton. It makes too much sense. It just makes way too much sense. Omarion Hampton is probably outside of Ashton Jeanty the most for sure three-down back in this draft class. Bulky, but he's fast. He has a great size-speed blend. I don't know how great of a pass pro he's going to be in the NFL, but I know that he's a guy that's going to be there for three downs. He's a guy that's going to make plays with the ball in his hands, and if you give him a sliver of space, he is going to take it for a good amount of yardage. I think Omarion Hampton would be a home run pick for honestly any of these running back needy teams at the second half of the first round, because Omarion is a guy that could have easily gone at 12 if Dallas stayed there. And I mean, hell, Chicago, if they're feeling frisky, they could have gone with him at 10. I think it's a little bit too high. But Omarion Hampton, 20, Broncos, great fit. I think it makes too much sense. They go from a North Carolina running back in Javonte Williams and replace him with Omarion Hampton. Now, 21, Dallas, they traded down. They went from 12 to 21 with the Steelers. What do they go? They probably go with the guy they would have ended up going with at 12, and that's Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden is a great wide receiver prospect. I love him. I think he's a great fit alongside CeeDee Lamb because it gives CeeDee Lamb that ability to create on the outside and to create on the inside, and that's where he works best. When CeeDee Lamb had his 1,800-yard season a couple of years ago, it was because you had a speed threat in Brandon Cooks that maybe wasn't as good of a separator as he used to be, but at least he was a threat, and somebody up the middle in Jake Ferguson. Now, obviously, the main guy you're going to be paying attention to is CeeDee Lamb, but those are bodies to move around that can get you looking elsewhere. Matthew Golden is a body that makes you look elsewhere, because if you're focused in on CeeDee Lamb, Matthew Golden's going to be about 30 yards down the field burning your boundary corner because of how fast he is. Ran a 4.29 or 4.28 at the combine. He's got phenomenal hands. I think he is a good route runner at all three levels of the field. I like him a little bit more from the medium to deep range, which is why I think he fills in great as a gunner. What you were trying to get out of Brandon Cooks last year that you really didn't get on a consistent basis, you're going to get out of Golden. He's a phenomenal fit if you're looking for a wide receiver too. To me, I think he fits in as the Jordan Addison to CeeDee Lamb's Jettas. I guess that's the way to say it, but pretty much a perfect complement that works in the middle of the field and can go deep and pretty much fill in the spots that CeeDee Lamb can't get to, whether it be from double coverage, whether it be from, cover two. I think they can get really creative with this. And even though they still want to run the ball, I think you can get a really good running back in round 2 or round 3, probably based off them trading back. They can maybe even double up on some really good running backs and build a solid core. You've got Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders in your backfield. Those are not for sure guys. You're going to address running back. You don't have to do it here in the first round, but you do have to get a weapon. Matthew Golden is that weapon. Now, honestly, if Matthew Golden becomes a Dallas Cowboy, I'm giving him his official nickname. Matthew Golden I-007. That is it. He needs to wear the number 7. He can't because of Trayvon Diggs. But Golden Matthew Golden would be great. I'd love to see him in Dallas. I don't know if it's going to happen, but would love it. Los Angeles can go with a bunch of different things. I think they're going to go with the obvious thing and go with Colston Loveland. You've got Greg Roman, who loves using tight ends. Historically, he had Mark Andrews. I don't think he ever really got to use Isaiah Likely to his best potential, but Isaiah Likely was a really athletic tight end that was going to be used a lot more. But now that Greg Roman is over in Los Angeles, and you've got a former Michigan coach, you might know this Harbaugh guy. Colston Loveland is going to know this Harbaugh guy, though. And I think it's a great fit if you want to keep Ladd McConkey growing. Ladd McConkey, he is the wide receiver 1 there. He is the guy to feed the ball to offensively. It's one of Justin Herbert's favorite guys so far. I think what Loveland can do in the middle of the field is going to be enough for them to look at it and not think about it twice. I also think he can hold his own in protection, whether it be run blocking or pass protection. I think he's a better blocker than Tyler Warren. I don't think he's as much of a Swiss Army knife as Tyler Warren, though. He's a high-value prospect that I think they're getting at a good value here at 22. Green Bay. Man, I have no idea what Green Bay is going to do. With how I'm looking at it, I've been hearing that Jair Alexander could possibly be leaving for months. I've been hearing that, they're going to trade him at the draft. This could happen still. I have no idea. I've seen names like Siobhan Rebel be floated around. I've seen Maxwell Hairston because of his combine. Azare Thomas is an interesting cornerback prospect. I still think Benjamin Morrison can produce at an NFL level. Darian Porter, fast guy. Dorian Strong down the board for Virginia Tech. Go Hokies is a really good physical, technical corner, but the speed isn't really all that there. They've got options down the board. I don't think they go corner here. If I am the Green Bay Packers, you gotta listen to your running back, right? You gotta get a wide receiver. And with the guys that are available here on the board, Emeka Egbuka would cook in Green Bay. Are you kidding me? I mean, what you really want out of here is you want a guy to come in and be the alpha so you can figure out who the other wide receivers are. Emeka Egbuka, probably the best route runner, probably the safest wide receiver in this class. You know what you're getting out of him. He was productive at Ohio State as a second option, and he's a guy that you can thrust into to kind of start off as a second option so you can see if, is Reed your guy or is Watson your guy if he ever stays healthy. But I think slowly Emeka Egbuka will work into this offense and say, hey, you know what you're getting in me. I'm secure. I'm going to go out there, get you probably 6 to 10 receptions a night, maybe get a little bit more action in the red zone than some of these other guys. And I'm not just a big play guy. I'm a guy that just makes plays. And I think that's what Green Bay needs right now. So they can figure out with, Wicks, Reed, Watson, all these different guys that they've got in the wheelhouse. You need somebody to stand out. And Emeka Egbuka, I think, is a guy that can not only stand out, but for some of these other players to realize, okay, well, our jobs are on the line. We need to start working it. And I think that's what Green Bay needs badly. StreamYard says we got 8 people in the stream. How y'all doing? Wow. I didn't know that. Over here, looking back at the draft, Minnesota. I think what you're going to see out of Minnesota is them making the smartest pick, probably one of the best fits, a guy that if he lives up to his draft profile will likely be one of the best defensive prospects in this class. I think even though he might not win it because he doesn't get sacks, Malachi Starks is a defensive rookie of the year candidate on the Minnesota Vikings. I think if he goes higher, You could see, I could see him being a really, really good Javon Holland replacement over there with Miami. But it's not only the fact that they need somebody in the secondary. It's not only the fact that Malachi Starks was a great prospect at Georgia. It's Malachi Starks alongside the brain of Brian Flores scares me. It scares me because he's going to be roaming all around the box. This guy's probably going to be about 15 yards downfield, and he's going to be crashing in. His closing speed is great. His technique is great. His eyes are great. Everything about Malachi Starks is great. The only reason he's fallen down this board is because he's got that S next to his name and not CB. Otherwise, he'd be up there, but he's more than just a CB. I think what you're going to see with Malachi Starks is what you're going to see out of Brian Branch from Detroit, what you've seen out of him the past couple of years, what you're going to continue to see out of Branch is that he moves all over the place, and he can move in and out of the slot. I think Malachi Starks can do that too. He's got a good build too. I think it would be a no-brainer for Flores, and I think he would be yelling at Kevin O'Connell to go out there and make this pick. If the Houston Texans don't go offensive line here, I'm deathly afraid for CJ Stroud. I don't know if the man's going to make it past week 1. They got to go with somebody here. With the injury concerns, I don't love Josh Simmons. I think he needs somebody to block his Jesus. Personally, I would see Gray Zabel here. I like Josh Connerly. I like Josh Connerly a lot. I think physically, he's one of the stronger tackles in this class. I think he can mow over people a little bit more than Josh Simmons. And, he's not coming off of, like a patellar tear, whatever Josh Simmons just faced. He's not coming off that. I think Josh Connerly can come in, work day one, and produce, maybe not immediately, but I think he can adjust to the NFL game. And I think the upside, what you can get with Connerly, is a little bit more interesting. With the Los Angeles Rams, I think defense could be on the board here. I mean, you could also maybe go wide receiver. I think it would be interesting. I don't know if you're really going to do that now that you have Devontae, but you did get rid of Cooper Kupp. But then again, you got Puka, Devontae, not that big of a deal. Defensively, I think you got to go with somebody in the secondary. Corners, like I said earlier, Siobhan Rebel's a really interesting guy. I think if he was a little bit healthier, he would be a for sure first-round guy. Siobhan Rebel is legit. I like him a lot. Maxwell Harrison is also a guy I could see them, kind of jumping the gun here. Los Angeles is also talking about reuniting with Jalen Ramsey. I think with all of these questions that are going around, linebacker Carson Schlesinger has been talked about as being a first-round guy on some teams' boards. I don't think he's a first-round guy here. Who is a bona fide first-round guy, though, is Nick Amanawarrior. Oh, my God. This guy is insane. I don't know if technically he's going to translate the best, but Nick Amanawarrior on this young, exciting, fast-paced Los Angeles Rams defense could be like Malachi Starks level good. I think with his ability to kind of dominate the box when he is firing on all cylinders is something that you can rarely get. I'm expecting if Los Angeles sees this pick, they're going to take it immediately because they're thinking of all the blitz packages. They're thinking of all the drop back packages that you can craft up with Nick Amanawarrior. One of the fastest guys, period, at the combine. Probably had one of the best relative athletic scores. I'm not sure. I know Shamar Stewart had a really high one, but I know he was up there. Phenomenal athlete. If we're just judging his talent based off athleticism, he's a top 15 guy. A little bit more raw technically as a safety. I think he's a little bit more of a strong safety. You want to see him prove himself a little bit more in coverage, but I think he can work into that with the Los Angeles Rams. Now for the Ravens, I kind of don't know what to do here. I really don't. Because Rashad Bateman had a really good year last year, kind of being that red zone guy. And Zay Flowers had a 1,000-yard receiving season. Derrick Henry had a great year. Lamar Jackson just, threw the ball all over the place. You could go with wide receiver. It would be interesting with Luther Burden on the board, but Luther Burden's kind of fallen. He's kind of fallen down. I think edge with the prospects that are available here is something they're going to be considering. Donovan Izaraku, pairing him up with, was he there when Zay Flowers was there? I don't know. But having two Boston College Eagles in there would be really interesting. And he was a really productive edge. And I think they would like a little bit more production on the outside. However, if you're going to go with production, you got to go with Mike Green. I think Mike Green this is about the range where I'm comfortable with picking him just because you look at the tape and it's phenomenal. He had great testing, yes. But again, I don't know how much I can trust Mike Green moving from the ACC at Virginia to the Sun Belt. And whoa, what do you mean going from a Power 4 conference to the Sun Belt? You're going to have production spikes? So, I mean, there are doubts to have here with Mike Green based on a production standpoint. How well or how efficient is that production? On the other hand, though, who cares? Who cares? You're a guy that has the season that Mike Green has. You take a shot on him. Now, for the Lions, I don't know if they could. I mean, they could go offensive line. It would be smart for them to protect Jared Goff as much as you can. But I think you need to project the best player on your team, period. And that's Aiden Hutchinson. And I think the best way you protect him is give him a guy that can work alongside him. And I just talked about him. I'm going to go with Donovan Izaraku. Really productive guy at a Boston College. I think he had a 16 or 16 and a half sack season this past year. Him and Antoine Powell-Randall out of Virginia Tech. Go Hokies. Donovan Izaraku slightly beat him out, but these were two of the most productive edges in the ACC, Izaraku and APR. Izaraku looks a little bit more NFL ready. That's why you're not seeing, based on the production, Mike Green, Donovan, APR is all the way down here in the third or fourth rounds. But Izaraku is a really good guy to kind of balance what you're going to get out of Aiden Hutchinson. Because what you want out of a guy coming off of as major of an injury as Hutchinson is you want him to slowly ease back into it so you know he's 100% for that second half of the season. Because Detroit is going to have a little bit more on their plate this year. Chicago is going to be a little bit more experience. They're going to be a little bit more healthy. They're going to be going after it. Or they have to. If they don't go after it next year, what are they going to do? Green Bay is always going to be competitive. Minnesota, they're getting their young quarterback of the future. Who knows what they could be? But after last year, they're going to be going after it. Detroit's got probably the most competition in the NFL right now, and they need somebody to come in and let Aiden Hutchinson get a little bit more healthy, and I think Izaraku is the perfect guy to come in and do that for them. Washington. Now, I think we might have at least a couple of Washington fans in here, but Washington's in a really interesting spot here. I think they have traded their way into not going wide receiver here, so if you really want Luther Burden or hell, maybe you want Jack Besh here if you want to get another cracked out white boy. I think Luke McCaffrey is enough to kind of fill the reservoir for now. But Washington, I think they go defense. I think it's what they need the most. I'm looking at their defensive line. Some people have said, Derek Carver would be great. You got way too many defensive tackles. I know you just got rid of Jonathan Allen, but please, you know what you're going to get out of Daron Payne every single year. And I really, really like Johnny Newton. I think Johnny Newton is still a really good prospect that you need to give a little bit more time. I think they need more help on the outside. And a guy that was really, really good in the SEC that shouldn't be here still probably in some people's eyes. I think this is about the range he would go. We're going to go 3 straight edges and go with James Pierce Jr. I think no matter if it's Izaraku or Green coming down to Washington, I think they're going to pick an edge here because the one main thing you need, you could argue corner. I think the one main thing that they need is just a presence on the edge because I don't think you got anybody that can even do that right now. I think your interior line has been the strength of your team for the past few years. James Pierce Jr. is your best shot at saying, okay, well, it's not just the interior guys that can produce. The guys on the outside can produce too. This is a great fit, and especially with a guy like Dan Quinn getting an athletic edge, that's kind of what you want to do. That's what you want to do. So, connection is try plugging in. Maybe connection is unstable. Are we lagging here? I'm wired in. Whatever. Maybe StreamYard is just tripping. Anyways, moving on. I don't know why StreamYard's telling me all that stuff. Yeah, it's fine. Here we go. Buffalo. Final 3 picks. Buffalo's got a big one. I think with Von Miller now on the market, you could be looking at edge, but Gregory Rousseau, really productive. I think you could be looking at the interior defensive line. Derek Carman is a big, big name to be looking at right here. I think linebacker and corner is also a really, really good shot here. I love Derek Carman as a prospect. I do not think he should be here. I do not think he should be falling. But I think he's going to continue falling. You have to go corner here. You have to. I think all signs really do point to Buffalo taking a corner here, whether it's Amos, whether it's Hairston, whether it's Revel. I think they're going to just go with a guy that is the best athlete. And you may be thinking I'm going with Hairston here. No, I'm going Revel, man. I'm going to give Siobhan Revel his first round hype because he's a lanky corner. He's a fast, lanky corner. And I think just because he was injured this past year at East Carolina, we didn't really get to see what Siobhan Revel can be. I think if Siobhan Revel would have tested at the NFL Combine, he would be going up there around the range where you're thinking about Will Johnson. He could be going up here around the range where you're thinking about Janae Barron. And that could be an overstatement, but his length is some of the best in the class. His footwork was looking elite at the beginning of the season. I think East Carolina had a gem. It sucks that he got injured early on, but I love the fit of Siobhan Revel as a boundary corner long-term. I think this is their best shot to kind of make up for what you didn't get in Kyer Elam and get your lockdown, lanky boundary guy. Revel is that guy. Now, Kansas City, we know what you need to go with here. We know what you need to go with here. If you don't go offensive line, you're stupid. You're stupid. Because you traded away the only good pieces that you have. And I really, I mean, you brought back Trey Smith. Trey Smith was fine. And you kind of bolstered up your offensive line a little bit still. I still think they could go with an offensive lineman here. I don't know if you're confident in the tackles that you brought in. You brought in, God, I can't remember his name, but the guy from San Francisco that stepped in for Trent Williams. He played good ball. I don't know if you're looking at Josh Simmons and saying, well, his injury history is enough for us to look past him because we just need a body. And Josh Simmons is going to be out there, one way or another. But Kansas City is still a team that made the playoffs. I don't think they're that worried to where they're going to take a shot on Josh Simmons. I think they're going to be better off taking a safer prospect. And this is a perfect spot for Tyler Booker to go. Tyler Booker is a guy that kind of like Creed Humphrey when he was picked was really, really high when it came to his potential. But because he was a center, he's not going to go as high as some of the other tackles or guards in his class. Because Tyler Booker is a guard, he's not going to go as high as some of these other guys. And I think this is what we're going to see with Donovan Jackson. Donovan Jackson, the fact that he was able to play good at tackle, I thought was going to shoot him up big boards. It is not. A lot of people do not love Donovan Jackson, or at least as much as I do. I like D-Jack a lot. Tyler Booker is a good fit here to the Chiefs. But again, wouldn't be shocked if they go with one of these more developmental guys. Speaking of Josh Simmons, he's not really developmental. You just want him to be healthy. But they could also double up. Now the Eagles. The Eagles just went through, and I think with what you want. See, here's my thing. I think Kingsley is a guy that they are keeping on the interior to start and then moving him to the outside. I think what you're seeing with him is a lot what you've seen with like Tyler Smith. Now, Kingsley wasn't as good as Tyler Smith in his first year, but I think Kingsley is just a little bit too big. I think the guy comes in at like 6'4", something like that. Suamatai, I'm pretty sure. I gotta look up his measurements. I mean, he's 6'5", 326 pounds. He's not a guard. When you look at his physicals, he's not a guard. I think he's trying to learn the game on the interior, and then you move him out. I think this is a perfect year for them to push him out, for him to step out of his boundary. But as of right now, the guys that you had on your team last year did not work. They didn't work because they got to the Super Bowl and they crumbled. You could go with a boundary guy. I know Simmons, he's got the production, but his injury is legit. And it is a massive, massive concern. It's a big risk. I don't think it's a risk that the Kansas City Chiefs can make. I think Tyler Booker is a safe pick. I think it's a pick that they should make. You can take a shot at a tackle down the board and probably get a little bit more development out of him. Ozzie Trapillo is a guy I like. Emory Jones is a little bit too high on this big board. Cameron Williams is a guy that went through injury, but athletically, he is a freak. He is a mountain too. Charles Grant is another guy. So I think if you want to go with tackle, I don't think you take the injury risk with Josh Simmons. I think you just get the guy that you know could play in Tyler Booker. Now, back to the Eagles. That is a good point, though. Back to the Eagles. I mean, you don't really need anything. So I think you just go with the best player available. But then again, I don't think the best player available really fits into what they need. Even though I know they love picking defensive linemen, I mean, honestly, the more I think about it, with the amount of time that Jordan Davis isn't on the field, Derek Carmen would be stupidly productive for them. But it would make a lot of sense. It would make a lot of sense for the downs that Jordan Davis has to go to the oxygen tank and be on the sidelines. Derek Carmen can come in and be productive. I mean, they would once again have one of the best defensive lines in the league. But this defensive line class is deep. So I think that's going to happen either way. They're going to get a pretty good pick there. But there is still so much talent to go through in this class. Right there, we've got our full 32. For those who are watching after the stream ended, make sure you let me know down below what you think of this pick. If you have a favorite team, who do you think your team is going to pick? Like I said, I'm a Cowboys fan. I like us trading down. I think we're going to trade down, and I think we can trade down and still get Golden. Although I wouldn't be shocked if we go get Emeka Buka at 21, because that's another guy we really like, or Josh Simmons, which was talked about a little bit more, is a guy that we love and that we want to take a shot on. I don't love it. I think if Golden's there, you got to go with them. And there's some really interesting picks all throughout this first round, and I cannot wait to see how these first 32 go down tomorrow night. So thank you so much for tuning in live or watching. If you like this video, you weren't here earlier when I told you to do it, make sure you go down and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and while you're down there, hit the notification bell. Don't waste your time while you're down there. Get as much done as you can. Thank you for tuning in. Happy draft day if you're seeing this on Thursday, and happy draft day eve. Hope it's going to be a fun one. I'll see y'all then. Peace.